Another one that we see some issues with is besides the neoplasms, are the different types of cytopenia. In other words, if we look at blood, we know that it has three major types of blood cells: the white blood cells, which are split into 5 categories, the red blood cells, and the platelets. And we can have too much or too little of almost any of them. What anemia is actually the decrease in the number of erythrocytes, in other words, the red blood cells, or the quantity of hemoglobin, or the volume of PAC cells. And we have different lab tests for this. Important thing to remember is that we code based on what the physician documents is the problem. We don't code based on a lab value in and of itself. We have the nutritional anemias, as mentioned here, the D50 through D53. I'll let you read those on your own. We have the hemolytic anemias. In other words, the red blood cells are destroyed in the hemolysis. And a lot of these things are extremely straightforward. The one thing that isn't always straightforward is this one here, sickle cell disease. And most people are familiar with what it is, some of the treatments, what have you. There are other related types of hereditary conditions similar to sickle cell, the spherocytosis, the D58.0, the elliptocytosis. And again, these things are usually called out pretty thoroughly. We can have acquired hemolytic anemia that's caused by drugs, toxins, certain industrial exposures, corticosteroids, and some of these other things. With aplastic anemia, we have basically something happening to the bone marrow. It's damaged, stem cells are destroyed, and the body doesn't make enough red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets. And aplastic anemia can either be acquired or inherited. And the important thing about this slide is that we want to make sure with all of these blood disorders that we're capturing the cause of whatever the anemia is. So this is why it pays to look at the tabular and make sure we're capturing all of those. That's all I have for you. We'll see you online. Bye now.